Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show.
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years.
So get ready! I mean, get ready! Are you ready for some football?
You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. A weekly podcast about sports since 2011. With a focus on football. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I'm here for episode 416, not alone, as usual. Joining me tonight, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
It is great to be here, Justin. We've got a lot to talk about. It's not great bracket-wise, at least. I don't know about you. You had been doing pretty good. I don't know how the
I had
last
been doing
couple
really
days
well.
have-
Yesterday afternoon,
Things took a
started
turn
to
for
hit
the
some
worse.
bumps.
Was it St. John's?
Yeah, I had them making the final four.
Okay.
My champ's still in it, so that's good. So I think I'm doing okay. And my champ's still in. So champ's in, you have a shot.
That helps.
Now I picked the champ that, according to ESPN,
A lot
at
of
least
people?
Overall, about a quarter of the people picked. So
Was it Duke or Florida?
Duke.
Okay, yeah, I have Duke too.
So, we'll have to wait and see. But hey, if your champ's in, you still got a lot of potential points.
You've
so.
got a good chance. Yeah. So, for those of you watching live with us here on the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, episode 416, we are doing our baseball preview tonight. But we're going to start with March Madness, then talk a little wrestling,
Yes, sir.
and then move on to our Phillies and MLB preview. But to update you on the ESPN Tournament Challenge, March Madness is here. We're down, 3.5 days already gone. The best weekend of the year, almost over. And right now, sitting in first place is my cousin Matt.
Hey.
He's got Houston. He's sitting in the 99.3 percentile. He has 440 points. So that means he's probably, 44 and 2 or 3, probably? Something like that.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
There is one undefeated, or last I knew, there was one undefeated.
Yes, I believe. Last I saw,
They were
probably about
42
an
and
hour
0.
and a half ago, or
Yeah,
an hour ago. There was one bracket remaining that was perfect in ESPN's over 24 million.
24 million brackets, one left as of an hour or two ago. I don't know if it's still holding up or not. But so Matt is in first alone with Houston as his champ. Next, longtime listener of the show, John Rogers, has Duke. He's in second. Then my buddy Sean is in third. He has Auburn. So those are your top three right there. A few are tied with Sean at third place with 42 correct so far. Sharon High's also in there with a pick of Houston. Your son Austin in third. However,
Yeah, his champ
he
is
took
out.
St. John's, so he is done. Your wife, though, in third as well with Duke. John's second bracket sitting at seventh, and there you are with Duke in seventh as well. A lot of Dukes there in a row. Everyone tied for ninth also as Duke. My cousin, or actually reigning champ, Jameson, is sitting there at ninth place. My dad also tied for ninth, Dave Diaz, and your sister,
Hey.
Andrea, who hit a milestone today. We got to walk in the Phillies
she
Charities
was able
5K.
She walked to the 5K today. And I know people might be like, walking the 5K, but she is tomorrow. She'll be 2 months out from her brain surgery. So that was cool milestone for her. My dad and Jamie were able to go down and do that with her. My dad, we'll get to this later in the show. Quick turnaround back to Philly.
Back-to-back days in Philly. Yep.
Yeah. So
Then a lot of people in 13th place, including Trevor Vaughn, Matt's daughter Ansley. You got Andy Hoffert, a former champion. He's hanging around there in 13th.
What was his topic? Was something like, was it our favorite, most memorable Penn State?
It was
games or
Penn.
something
Yeah, it
like
was
that?
related to Penn State.
Yeah.
What was it? Top Penn State games, favorite Penn State games, something like that. That was a good topic a
Yeah,
few
that was a
years
fun
ago to have Andy on after he won. He is in the running there at 13th. Adam Filer, the Duke fan, picked Duke. He's sitting there at 13th, as well as Natalie,
Hey,
who was
there we
John
go.
just a few weeks ago. And then I put in the chalk picks, which just kind of, it goes as expected. All of the better
Right.
teams, higher seeds, win. What would happen? That's there sitting in 13th right now. So is Sean's second bracket, and my uncle and Kelly, my wife, was in first place for a while.
Yeah.
Was on fire, and then St. John's losing yesterday crippled her. So, yeah, we'll see. Now, obviously, the most important thing is total max points remaining, and that changes things up a bit as both of Sean's jumped to the top. His
Yeah.
Auburn and Florida picks got the most max points. He's sitting actually 30 above his second bracket and 40 above Matt, who's in first place overall but has less max points remaining. Sean 20 points. All right, so that's the update on March Madness. I don't know. It wasn't super crazy. I feel like it wasn't a ton of
No, it wasn't-
memorable
right,
upsets or
right.
anything like that. But, there were a few here and there. I know some of the upset by seeds weren't even upsets by Vegas standards.
Right,
Like, I think
right.
was it Colorado State over Memphis? It was a 12-5.
Right.
Colorado State was favored.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the seeding in the NCAA tournament is really weird. I start with the whole thing of how can there be play-in games for an 11 seed? To
right.
me, every
Shouldn't all
play-in
the-
game should be 16,
right? Yeah, I
Like,
know. I
every
think that
single one.
all the time.
I don't understand that.
No, I don't either. It's an odd thing to me, but hey, whatever. I'm just along for the ride
I
when it comes
think
to
what
March
they
Madness.
do there is they say well, some of the teams that win conferences that have guarantees to get in are lesser than the teams that make the North Carolina would be favored over, I don't know, just Belmont or somebody who wins one of those lesser leagues.
Right.
But I don't care. They won the league. They shouldn't. If you're in the play-in, if you're the 11th team out of the ACC, I don't care. Go play the play-in, and you're a 16. I don't.
Yeah. So, that's March Madness. That's where we're at. Good luck to everyone still in. We will obviously award the winner a show T-shirt. Hopefully, we'll have the size of whatever people need. I think I still have at least one of everything available, and they will have an option to join us for a show in person or virtual on a sports topic. They can choose, but Justin and I do get to agree to it or not. We've had issues over the years of people wanting to talk about things that Justin and I
got a text,
we're not interested.
I got a
in.
text teasing that
that was coming, huh?
and then I feel like shortly after, that immediately took care of itself.
Yeah,
and,
well,
and your
it's
sister's
funny how
bracket
that happens
dropped
sometimes, isn't it?
quickly afterwards.
All right, so let's now fast forward to or rewind. Justin, as the case may be, I'm not really sure which way you want to say it, but Justin and I got to experience something for the first time yesterday.
Yeah.
Together down in Philadelphia with your dad and son. We traveled to not just the 2025 NCAA Division I Wrestling Championships. We got to see the championship round, the final session 6. Now, we already knew that Penn State had wrapped up the team title, which made things a little bit easier on us, Justin, from a rooting interest standpoint, because we knew Penn State, we weren't going there and Penn State could possibly lose.
Right.
Although at
right.
times on Friday and even, mostly Friday, we were kind of in doubt.
It had gotten
sure.
to 3 points.
Yeah.
It had gotten down to 3 points. And then Penn State, even after some, ones that didn't go the way we would like early on, those guys then went into the consolations and dominated in the consolations and racked up bonus points and really put it away. And all in all, led to a new scoring points title or record the year after breaking it last time. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Trying to pull up. Oop. Went too far. Here we go. So
yeah.
so all 10 Penn State wrestlers
made
advanced
yes,
into they were All-American.
yes, yeah,
They all made it that far.
right. It's only the second time a team has had
Right. 2001 Minnesota, I
Right.
believe, was the last and only time before Penn State 2025. And it kind of was expected of Penn State this year. The hype was out of control.
It went and it was like, teams were like, oh, they could shatter the scoring record again. And to think about it, like, think about how they could have shattered it. Like, they did very well.
Yeah, which we'll
could-
get to shortly.
They could have done better, and they still broke the scoring record
that they just set last year.
Right. Yeah. So it's just absolutely insane how dominant they've been. Right? Was this 12 out of 14?
12 out
now?
of 14.
Yeah, 12 out of 14.
It's 12 out of 15 years, but 1 year they didn't have it.
Right. So 12 out of the last 14 championships, 3 separate four-peats.
Right.
Right, which is just absolutely absurd.
3 times they won 4 in a row.
Does that have you worried for next year?
I honestly, when I was looking, so I was like, I'm buying a Penn State champion shirt. I have
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
since like 2017 or something like that. So I'm getting one of those. And I looked on and I'm like, man, this is crazy. 12 and 14 years. And I'm reading through, and that's when I was like, oh, 3 straight 4-peats. I was like, oh, so we're losing next year. Immediately, like the
Right,
negative cynicism in my head.
On
of
the other hand,
what's going to happen?
if that means we win the next 4,
Yeah, like you got to take the trade offs.
But yeah, it's absolutely absurd. The success that Cale Sanderson has brought to State College, it's just unreal.
It's insane. I mean, I think people were already talking about a dynasty when they won their first 4. Now they've won 12 out of 14.
Right.
The wild thing is the 1 year they didn't win, the year right before this current
Yes,
4-peat, they finished second.
Right.
They did better than people expected them, because I think people knew coming into the year was going to be a slight dip after losing
they
the
were
year
right.
2020, the graduation stuff. So 2021 was sort of like a build-up year. They still finished second and won,
I think
3 or 4
I think they had 4
individual titles. And Iowa, who won the team title that year, didn't have a single one.
Right.
They were shut out,
Right.
which they won the team title, which is, the bigger picture thing. But they
Right.
were mad because they didn't have
their
any
fans were
individual
real mad,
titles.
right.
So Penn State gets 2 champions, individual champions we got to see last night. It started off with a bang. Carter Starace wins his unprecedented and unmatched, first to ever do it, 5th individual national championship.
Yeah.
And did it against, he's not doing this against pushovers either.
No, he did it against last year's returning champion after he went up a weight class from last year.
Right. Parker Keck guy's in from Northern Iowa, who was really, I loved watching him wrestle last year because I knew Penn State, we weren't seeing him wrestle a Penn Stater in the championship. So it was fun to watch him. Knowing that Carter was going to take him on, I was a little concerned.
Yeah, I was too.
And then we got to start with that. And he came out on top, just as he has every other time before.
Right.
So I think he finished his college career, I want to say, at 104-4.
I think 104-4, but 2
2
of
were
those are
injury defaults.
Injury
Right.
defaults, right?
So in matches he actually participated in, he was 104-2.
Right. He hasn't lost a contested match in years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Big Ten Final 2021. I
Yeah.
think we discussed last night
Yeah.
in the car on the way home. How wild is that? Insane.
Right.
Just insane. So, yeah, what an incredible job by Carter. I'm glad he came back. What an experience it was to see him wrestle again and in person.
Yeah.
That's it would have been cool to have been there last year just because, like, Aaron Brooks, get to see him and Carter both do 4 in a row. But to be there to witness excellence from Penn State,
Yeah.
seeing 2 individuals winning the national title again. Before we continue with Penn State, I think we have to talk about heavyweight.
Yeah. That was
280, is that 285 plus?
285.
Give or take, or does it have to be 285?
285.
Okay, it is.
Yep.
So heavyweight is locked in at 285. And you have Gable Steveson, who was already a 2-time national champion, but
Two-time
missed the
national
last 2 seasons.
Yes.
I think actually
But
in 2022, didn't he leave his shoes on the mat to
Yes.
signal he was done?
Yes, because then he went and won the Olympics.
And did WW well, he won the Olympics the year before,
Oh, okay,
2020,
okay. Yeah,
summer of
yeah,
21.
yeah.
And then he came back and won national championships at Minnesota, or the next national championship in Minnesota
Right.
in the spring of 2022. Left his shoes on the mat.
Which is like the signal that you're
I'm
done.
done.
You're out.
He went to do WWE stuff.
Yep.
I actually was in training camp with the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Then I remember sending you and Adam the tweet
Right.
that he was coming back.
Right.
And we're like, oh, man. Now, Penn State had the returning national champion at the wake, Greg Kirklet, who unfortunately suffered an injury
At some point.
At some point, Big Tens, maybe before, not sure. Wasn't himself, still was able to wrestle himself to All-American and finish 6th place. He injury defaulted. He didn't actually wrestle
Right.
the 5-6 match, but he lost to the guy who ended up upsetting Stevenson in front of us, called the greatest upset in college wrestling history.
Which I get. I feel like that's a bit of a prisoner of the moment thing. Just
Right.
because I immediately go, and I think I mentioned this last night, when the Purdue kid pinned
Spencer Lee.
Spencer Lee,
Yeah.
like, because Spencer Lee was going towards being a 4-time champion. Like that was the story of that championship. Like that was what everyone was expecting to see. The next 4-time champion, which hadn't happened in a while. Like, it's very rare. Like it was one of those things where it's like Spencer Lee was to do this. He's an Iowa guy, it's all that stuff. And he got pinned, not in the championship, but like,
No,
but that to me adds to the upset, the pure upset value. Now, it didn't happen in the championship in that way.
Yeah, I'm
And-
pretty sure it happened in session 3 Friday morning because
And-
I was at
right.
work watching it.
And Stevenson, like the character he has and the dominance that he has, he is insanely dominant. But he got upset. But like part of me is like, he lost his freshman year, and that's nothing to shake your head at. Like, I don't mean that to knock him down. It's just when you're talking about the biggest upset in the history of college wrestling, I'm like, I don't know that it is.
I want it to be
Like,
true just because we were there. So
right.
like I saw
Absolutely.
that in person.
And in the moment and in the championship, if that all like factors into it, then yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Because to be honest, I assumed that Stevenson was just gonna, win, be pushing a major, but yeah, it was absolutely
my
insane.
initial thought was exactly what you said. When I heard someone say that's the biggest upset in college wrestling history, I was like, no, I watched the Spencer Lee thing happen.
Right,
like that
right.
was, people couldn't believe it because I remember tweeting out like, oh my God, did that just happen?
Right.
Like, and the announcers were like, couldn't believe it. Now,
Right.
I listened to the call after the fact. I heard
Right.
it today, and they were just like, they were going nuts
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
But I mean, cool. If you want to say it was awesome, I was there. I
Right.
can hang my hat on that.
Exactly. And like when you look at it, it's the last match. It's to close it out. It's just the spectacle. That's the reason they put it as the last match, because it was going to be Gable Stevenson's last, college thing. It was going to be his one, and then you get this guy come in and just change the story, but it's still the huge story. It's amazing.
Oklahoma State's Wyatt Hendrickson, who initially wrestled for Air Force. He's part of the Air Force. I guess his nickname is Captain America, which is pretty cool. If you're going to have a nickname, that's probably one to have with you. He's a second lieutenant in the Air Force wrestling for Oklahoma State, and he upset Gable Stevenson with was it like 23 seconds or something
he took
like
him
that?
down, and then Stevenson almost got up.
He
but then
rode him out for
rode
like 18 seconds
Took him
or
back to
something.
the mat. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Which both of those aspects are insane. Like taking him down is not easy.
something that happens often.
And then keeping him down is really difficult. But yeah, it was absolutely wild.
So actually, if they're gonna not flag us for anything, we'll play the video. It was wild. You could start. People were going nuts, right here. Like
Yep.
that's when we were like standing.
Look,
We were like, oh my! Like you can see the crowd
Right.
stand up. They know what just happened, and they give him the 3-point takedown. And then 17 seconds he's got to go.
Right. And then he gets here.
Gets
and you're
real
like, oh, man.
close for the escape, and he's just like, "No, I'm not
then-
letting you have it.
right.
I'm not.
And just,
Nope.
like,
I'm
sits on-
staying on."
yeah.
And when that happened with 3 seconds to go, you knew it. Hey, unbelievable. So, that happened at the match. It was kind of for Penn State wrestlers. It was a little. I don't want to say anticlimactic, but we had a long wait after Carter went first. We had 2 more Penn Staters in the championships, but then there were 5 matches between Carter first, then match 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which they started at the 125 and worked their way up. Then we didn't have any Penn Staters, and honestly, until I think it was match 4, including Carter's, the natives were getting a little restless because it was a lot of defense,
wrestling.
a lot of cautious, and a lot of stalling.
Yeah,
and people weren't weren't
so
too
a
happy
lot of
about
0-0 after 1, you know, which is okay, but that's not what people want to see. People want to see, 3-1 or 6-2 or 4-3. You know, like they want to see that kind of stuff after 1.
And we weren't getting that initially.
Right.
It did come, and most of them were entertaining matches. I wouldn't say it was the most entertaining finals that I've ever watched.
It's the best
but
when somebody gets a takedown in the first period. It then like forces the hand, and people start to go sometimes a little bit more. But
then we got to our next guy, Mitchell Bezenbrink, got to wrestle, and he's a much more active wrestler. So we figured that, and it started off strong. It tailed off a little bit, but picked up again then, and he won.
Yep.
And that's the thing, obviously, that we as Penn State fans care about the most. He got the victory after finishing. He was a runner-up last year, right?
Yes.
So
he lost to Keegan O'Toole last year.
Right, who lost yesterday.
Right.
We watched Keegan lose yesterday. So Penn State got another individual champion in Mesenbrink, who is back next year for Penn State wrestling, and he will look to defend his title. You think he's staying at 165? I would think probably.
I hope so,
because Levi's at 174, right?
Yeah.
And if you said Bar's dropping,
there's
down,
reports that Bar may try to drop.
Well, yeah. So then I don't think Mesenbrink's going anywhere.
Right. Then I'd picture him staying there. Yeah.
So yeah, it was good for Penn State. Josh Barr, who did better than his seeding.
Yeah.
He came in as the 4.
He had a really strong tournament.
He had a great tournament, but he was also beat up a little bit from Big Tens, I believe.
Yeah, he injury defaulted out of Big Ten. So for him to come back, they weren't sure that he was going to wrestle, fans, but he wrestled, and he wrestled really well and
made it to the final.
Really close to a championship, but lost out, but wrestled really well, and certainly going to be up there, and expectations will be really high for him for next year.
They'll be super high next year. Yep. So, that was our day at the College Wrestling National Championships. It was awesome. We got down there in the afternoon, swung by, saw a Wilson admin teacher at his tailgate. He's a former top 4 in the nation wrestler at Bloomsburg. He told us we weren't sure where that was, Bloomsburg. Then went to Fan Fest, and Austin got a bunch of swag, handed stuff out. Stopped at the Phillies team store, and then made our way through the Secret Service and TSA to get inside the building.
I already had today Jimmy going, what is all this stuff that
That's exactly what it is, stuff.
Yes.
But that's what it means being a kid at a
She's
place
like
like
it
that.
looks like you brought a banner back. I'm like, we did.
That happened, yes. Yeah. That happened. So, yeah, overall, everything was pretty fantastic. Despite us kind of nervous and anxious on Friday at the beginning of the session 3 and parts of session 4, Penn State wrestlers ultimately finished first, second, third, fifth, sixth.
Yeah, insane.
So in the end, it went really well.
Yes.
Penn State set a new team record, besting themselves from a year ago by 4.5 points. Yeah. They went above 172.5 to 177. 2 individual champs, a bunch of third-place finishers, and I think 7 out of 10 wrestlers back.
I think
next
so.
year. I think it's
the
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10 back. Yep.
Yeah, depending on what some of the other upperclassmen decide. But
Right.
I believe there's only 3 for sure moving on.
Well, and as you distance yourself from the Olympic year, and as you distance yourself from the COVID year, like it's not as much of that craziness
that
anymore.
crunch. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. Actually, it happened really quickly last year for Carter to decide to return.
Yeah.
I think he decided within a month.
Right, and like because everyone assumed, honestly, based on like his like statements that he was gone, but he decided to stay, and
Well, at this point
It
now
worked
you're
out.
like it worked out well.
Yeah,
He's the
yeah.
only. He's literally the only guy on the mountain.
right, right,
More than his coach.
yeah,
Not undefeated like his coach.
that's true.
But
true.
I mean, pretty darn close. And individual titles, team titles. Carter's got 5 individual and 4 team, and was a freshman the year that they were showing that they were going to be a force for
Right.
the next few years. And here we are 4 years later, and they won 4 in a row. So, yeah. Anything else to say about?
No, it was a great
Philly?
time. Hopefully they can get it up and going and do it again next year, right?
Yeah, in Cleveland.
That's right.
So, paging Joe V.
Yeah, that's right.
Get a room ready. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But, I mean, future's bright. Of course, Oklahoma State, Iowa, Nebraska, all good showings, all finished top 4. And I'm sure have a decent squad coming back as
I'm
well.
sure,
So
yep.
we'll see what Penn State's able to do. But I'm not going to bet against Kale.
That's right.
Like Kale and his staff and the
No.
program, the way they've done these things. I mean, this is only well, I guess with the COVID year, my 8th year. Why I started watching in 2017 at the request of you. You're like, you should definitely give it a try. And then I remember I was hooked within the first session, but I was messaging you. I was like, you got to explain this to me because I have no idea what's going on. I'm still not. I'm way better than
Right.
what I was
Well,
9 years ago,
and
8
it's,
years ago.
Like people are asking, and I was like, look, like a lot of the general stuff I know, but like when it goes to a review, like and they're looking at the technical of like the details, I'm like, I don't know. Like I have an opinion based on my fandom, but like I do not have this is definitely how this call should go or should not go. Like
yeah, there were a lot of challenges last night.
There
That was
are.
one thing
There
that,
are.
that stood out to me that I didn't think was a common thing. But I
it-
guess when
it
you're
is
wrestling
in the
for championship, yeah, when
in
you're
the
wrestling for a
championships, it
championship,
is,
you're gonna kind of do whatever it takes.
right.
I'm sure they could make some tweaks there because some of the challenges I think were just like let's give our guy a break.
Yeah,
you know?
and it becomes it becomes like we, almost like timeouts. Like, oh, we're gonna use the timeout, So, yeah, interesting.
All right. Well, I think the video I have playing from Penn State Wrestling is all but done, but we're going to move on and talk about baseball
Here we
now.
go.
Baseball is back. Today is March 23rd. Opening day for the Phillies is Thursday, March 27th. They will be down at Washington, right, to open
Yeah,
the
I believe they're
season.
at Washington.
3 in Washington, 3 in 4 days. They'll play Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the home opener will be a week from tomorrow, March 31st, against the Colorado Rockies. Right. Christopher Sanchez will be on the hill for the home opener on March 31st. Of course, Zach Wheeler pitches on Thursday against the Nationals. Then I believe on Saturday we're getting Luzardo, the new starting pitching acquisition. And then it'll be Nola on Sunday. Wheeler will actually pitch the second game against Colorado, right? Because he'll still be on 6 days rest there. We will not be seeing Ranger Suarez, though. He was just put on the IL to start the season. And filling in when they need him will be Taijuan Walker for at least 1, possibly 2 trips through the full rotation, depending on Ranger Suarez.
You know what? Maybe he can find something and be serviceable. Because if he can be serviceable, that would be huge for the Phillies.
I know his last outing was not great. Yeah. However, all the coaches have said, and all the metrics have backed it up, that he's been better this year than he was last year, closer to parts of 2023. And remember in 2023, I believe, at least through most of the season, and maybe at the end of the season,
where he was good.
He led the team in wins.
Yeah.
Taijuan Walker did. Now, last year, an ERA over 7 is not what you want from a starting pitcher. But so hopefully, when the Phillies need him, he'll be able to answer the call.
Put him out there, and if you need him, I don't mean this as in a sense of need, but if you can go out there and he can win 9-10 games, be about 500, like, okay, for a guy on the back end of your rotation, like, okay, like that's fine. But like he also needs to realize like you are the back end of the rotation. That's the other key piece.
Can you give us like 5 1/3 good innings?
Right,
Like,
you are the
be
back
great.
end of the rotation. Like, do your job.
So because of Ranger going on the IL today, the Phillies actually made a waiver claim for Kansas City Royals reliever Carlos Hernandez. 28-year-old flamethrower, throws strikes, surprise, surprise, but sometimes have difficulty getting people out. He's a reclamation project, couldn't stay in Kansas City. The Phillies will get him for probably 2 to 3 weeks while Rangers on the IL, see if they can do something with him. He'll probably be put out here at the beginning in low leverage situations, so they see what they got, but he's the newest addition to the Phillies pitching staff. Just happened today. Phillies won their Grapefruit League game today. I think they have 2 left. I want to say.
I don't know.
I think they still have 2 games to go. They won today over the Tigers 4-2. And I know the biggest thing was today we saw a lineup very similar to last year with Schwarber in the leadoff, which people thought maybe that was changing this year to go a little bit of a different direction. Honestly, the Matt Gelb articles I've been reading almost sounds like they're going to go based on the handiness of the starting pitcher. Right. So some days we could see Turner leading off, and others we could see Schwarber leading off. I don't want to get into baseball psychiatry because we know athletes in general can have a lot of psychological inconsistencies or issues. We talk about it. I know Justin and I have talked about it a lot with the starting pitchers and their routines. Yep. It is what it is. You got to deal with it. I don't know how much the players will enjoy having. They like to bat in the same spot all the time.
Right.
So if they're going to be jostling things around and it doesn't work, you're going to have to go back to a set order, whether that's Schwarber in the leadoff or not. I think they're going to want a set batting order. And right now, that does not appear the way they're going to start. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. The Dave Dombrowski has decided to run it back for the second straight offseason. Very little moves for your Philadelphia Phillies. The biggest was the trade for Jesus Luzardo from the division rival Miami Marlins. He did not pitch all that much last year and wasn't a great outing, but he wasn't fully healthy. Right. However, he had a fantastic 2023 and actually started the postseason wildcard game against the Phillies for the Marlins. Game 1 was Jesus Luzardo. Now he slots in entering the season. He was seen basically as the 5th starter. With Ranger out hurt, he's probably up to 4 now. And because of the way the rotation is set up to start the season, he's the 2.
Right.
But he's the biggest acquisition the Phillies had. The other one, at least from a starting pitching standpoint, everyone else is coming back. You got Wheeler, you got Nola, you got Sanchez, you got Walker, and Ranger once he's healthy. We said goodbye to a few relief pitchers, who had from basically April through September were fantastic last year, and then they couldn't figure out how to pitch in October. Right. And now 2 of them are gone. One of them, a trade acquisition during the season last year, Carlos Estevez from the Angels. He was sent packing, not re-signed. And then a reclamation project that people really liked, Jeff Hoffman, gone as well. I believe Hoffman went to the Blue Jays. I'm not sure where Estevez, did he sign anywhere yet? Last I knew, I thought he was still available, but that was a few weeks ago. But Hoffman did go to the Toronto Blue Jays, so they're both gone. We're going to see a bigger role from a Ryan Kerkering, who debuted quickly in 2023 at the end of the year and then had an inconsistent year last year with his first full time in the big leagues, but he's going to be asked for a bigger role in 2025. Hopefully we're going to get a bounce back year from Jose Alvarado, who have, based on the initial spring practices, he looks pretty good.
Yeah, that would be awesome if he could really find a stride. That would be huge for the Phillies.
Then the other one that the Phillies were deploying often in big time situations last year was Matt Strahm. Yep. He was injured on March 5th. However, he looks to be avoiding an IL stint and should be able to start the season on the opening day roster. They have Tanner Banks, who they acquired in a trade last year. Not a lot. I talked about Hernandez just coming over. He's another guy. It was really more losses than additions in the bullpen. At least, Jose Ruiz is still there. Not a lot to say about relief pitchers, which I know some people, are pretty upset about that they didn't do all that much in the bullpen with the way things imploded. But they're hanging their hat on. They know their guys, and they think it was just a bad spell at a bad time.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's one of those things where I have kind of looked at this as maybe this is how it will kind of go into a moment where there's a chance to they're in a better position to add someone if they need to during the season. There's that kind of aspect. So we'll see, but hopefully the guys can step up and do well, and consistency. And then, like we said, you got to be there at the end, right? You got to be healthy and hot come end of September, and give yourself a chance, and we'll see where it goes. The Dodgers are going to grab headlines all year.
Let them.
The Mets are going to grab headlines.
Let
this
them.
Year.
The Braves too, with their stars coming back in April, end of April, May.
Make the playoffs, healthy and hot, and I'll take us against anybody. I like our chances, against anybody.
So, other than the starting pitchers, relief pitchers on offense, the next big thing was outfield. But again, we talked about they're kind of running it back. Not a lot of changes. Biggest change is a new outfielder, corner outfielder. Had been playing right field, will play left field for the Phillies, and that's Max Kepler. 9-year vet from the Minnesota Twins. Had spent his entire career with the Minnesota Twins. Comes over, sort of fills the role that they were hoping Whit Merrifield would fill, or then last year Austin Hayes. Neither of the, Merrifield was sent packing and ended up with the Braves last year. Austin Hayes ended up having an issue with his kidneys and never really had a chance really to do much with the Phillies, right. and that kind of cratered the hope for a platoon at the end of the season and into the playoffs. So Max Kepler is the new addition. People were not happy. It was a short, not expensive 1 year, $10 million contract. $10 million is a lot of money, but in baseball, 1 year, not a big deal. People were upset that's all they did, but he's had a really good spring.
Right.
He's looked really good. I know he was having injuries last year, including, I think, a core injury that limited his ability at the plate. That's fixed, and he's looked really good this spring. So if Kepler is an upgrade, that should be seen as only a positive for the outcome this season. Brandon Marsh will be your everyday center fielder, and Nick Castellanos, who played and who started every single game for the Phillies last year, and it was very important to him, is back in right field. Maybe a average to subpar defensive outfield, at least. Castellanos has gotten better. I think his time in Philadelphia has gone pretty well after the first few months of his first year. Marsh is a above average center fielder, probably a better left fielder, but he's going to spend most of his time in center this year. Max Kepler, also I think an average to slightly above average left fielder. Rojas will be the fourth outfielder. Johan Rojas, the young center fielder, a lot of speed, a lot of defense, not a lot of hitting. Right. However, he made great strides over the winter, and the Phillies have been very happy with his ability at the plate this spring. He hasn't played the outfield because of an injury suffered during winter ball, but he is going to start the season on the open day roster. He is the fourth outfielder. He will play probably 1 to 2 days a week, spelling either Kepler or Marsh.
You could see him shift to center and Marsh to left or something, or for late game defensive substitutions. Well, and I saw today running substitutions.
Saw today in one of Gelb's articles that they're going to have Thompson's going to have to talk to Castellanos about a late game defensive replacement. Right. And he's got a lot of pride about playing a lot and often, at least starting every day. But it comes down to it, even though he's practiced and gotten better in the outfield, Kepler, Marsh, and Rojas are better.
Right.
So the talk was put Rojas in center, shift Marsh to left, put Kepler in right, because Kepler was a right fielder for the Twins. So we'll see what happens. That gives them their best defensive outfield alignment there.
Tell Castellanos, you knock in all the guys who are hitting ahead of you every time, and we're up a bunch of scores. Then
we
won't matter.
Take you out. Right. We won't have to take you out. So that's really the biggest change, at least from a starter or nearly everyday starter. You still have Bohm at third. Offseason trade chatter, nothing ever came about. We'll see what happens. He had an incredible start, was probably the Phillies' best player through maybe mid-May. Unfortunately, tailed off and had some issues throughout the summer and the fall. Trey Turner back at shortstop. He has not fared well defensively in his first 2 years in Philadelphia. and there's already talk about him having to change position. It helps though when you have Aiden Miller in the minors that could come up and take over, because Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford both looked fantastic this spring, and Justin Crawford is starting in AAA Lehigh Valley. Aiden Miller will be at Reading to start, so we need to get to the Reading Phillies this spring to see Aiden Miller as long as he's there, because if he starts off super hot, I would say within probably 2 to 3 months he could make his way up to Lehigh Valley as well.
Lehigh Valley by Memorial Day.
Yeah, so we want to see him while we can. Second baseman Bryson Stott also could be an option at shortstop in the future, because that's where he was playing during the Phillies' run to the World Series in 2022 when Gene Segura was playing second base and Trey Turner wasn't on the team. So he's your everyday second baseman. Bryce Harper is back at first base and has shown a willingness to return to the outfield should the Phillies need to make a big-time acquisition at first base. Didn't happen this offseason. Who knows what will happen next offseason? Right. The Phillies do have some question marks heading towards next spring on a few guys, most notably Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto are the biggest names in the positional players, and then Ranger Suarez is the one from the starting pitchers. But we got a whole season to go yet. Right. Let's not worry about that yet. JT is back at catcher. Still, I believe, best defensive catcher in baseball. Catchers have never really been known for a lot for their offense and their power. JT had been one of the top there for a while. Had injury issues last year. It's the first time, I think, possibly in his career, at least the time that he's been starting between Florida and Philly, that he didn't hit 100 games started behind home plate. He had 99, but he missed, 6 weeks or so with an injury. Put off surgery. Seems to be healthy, ready to go here in spring training. Opening day starting catcher opposite battery mate Zach Wheeler. But the only other marquee change is backup catcher. As a longtime clubhouse mainstay, Mr. Vibes, Garrett Stubbs, was told that Rafael Marchand had beat him out for the backup catcher job. There might be a business aspect to this because Marchand could not be sent down to the minors without having to clear waivers. Stubbs still had an option, so the Phillies kind of could hedge there.
Well, and Stubbs, I don't know if it was for this season or if it was last season, when he re-signed, he had to know, because Marchand comes up, and every time he comes up, when JT was hurt last year, they were like, oh, well, maybe, it's not like they went out and signed somebody. Marchand's kind of just been sitting there, so it's,
Well, and I think I felt the fate was kind of sealed last summer when Marchand came up when JT was on the IL and played really well. Was playing your average big league catcher as a guy just being called. Now, he's been in the Philly system, believe it or not, for 10 years because he was signed as a teenager. I'm sorry, is he Dominican Republic?
He might be. I don't know.
I can't remember where he's from, but 10 years in the Philly system. Finally got a lengthy stay last year because of the JT injury. Showed that he could not only perform offensively from time to time, but was able to call the games really well for the Phillies pitchers. And you do have to compliment, a lot of that is credited to Garrett Stubbs.
Yeah.
Saying, I'll take you under my wing. Yep. I've been here, done that. I've been here with JT. I've been here with these pitchers. Let me help you. Kudos to him. I love when veterans do that for younger guys. For guys just breaking in, whether the age difference is big or not. And now Stubbs is down at Lehigh Valley. He did accept the assignment. He is going there. He's going to spend time in Lehigh Valley. I'm sure we'll see him in Philly at some point.
Yep. Just
the nature of the game, 162 game season. So but that's it. It is a Phillies team that we're very familiar with. Other than Luzardo, Kepler, and the backup catcher, there really aren't a lot of changes. I know people are a little anxious for the season because of the regression we've seen now 3 years in a row. They started the build in 2019 with Harper. 2020 was a weird year for everyone, for everything. 2021, you finally started to feel like they were getting maybe a little bit of momentum, and then 2022, they break through. Get to the World Series, lead the World Series. Can't finish the job. Then we see them absolutely choke in 2023. Lose the NLCS, and now last year couldn't even win the division for the first time since 2011, but don't even advance. can't take down the division rival New York Mets to move on. So a round earlier exit. Hopefully that trend doesn't continue like it did 12 plus years ago when we saw the last generation of Philly talent leave. People are high on the Phillies. I think most people believe they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the overwhelming favorite to win the NL East.
I agree.
Because I think most people are I'd still say most people are favoring the Braves, despite the additions that the Mets have received. Juan Soto is the biggest
So
name.
the Splashes are the Mets, which is
Right. Typical.
That's Steve
That's
Cohen's
them,
thing now,
yeah.
too. And look, I hate the Mets, but like Steve Cohen is a different ownership there, and I don't like that. Like old ownership there, they would make splashes, and they were more in line with like the Jets kind of mentality. Like this, he's throwing money at the problem, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
Right.
But
That's the Sixers.
yeah, gosh, but he's If the Mets went the way of the Sixers, that would be great for the Phillies. But yeah, it's one of those. We'll have to see kind of how it plays out. But the NL East has a few really good teams. Could have multiple teams contending in the playoffs. But yeah, the Phillies should certainly be right there. And again, if they're healthy and hot at the end of the year, hey, why not? Why can't us?
Right. So I think people are really glazing the Braves. Everyone loves the Braves, and they get a great roster. Schwellenbach, was a rookie sensation. He spent time. Rookie status in MLB always confused me, but it was his first full year last year. Pitched great. Chris Sale ended up winning the Chris Sale. Is it Sale?
Sale.
Chris Sale ended up winning the Cy Young last year, beat out Zach Wheeler. I feel like Zach Wheeler is always second in the Cy Young award voting.
I think Chris Sale did win like the Triple Crown, though.
He did.
In terms of ERA, wins, and strikeouts, I think he led the league.
He was slightly above Wheeler in all of them. Yeah, I'm not saying that.
No,
like,
I know. Because I wanted Wheeler to get it, but I was like, oh. But Chris Sale was hurt and couldn't pitch in the playoffs, and the Braves made an early exit, too.
Yeah. Then they did weird reclamation project with Reynaldo Lopez last year, sub-2 ERA, but didn't pitch enough innings to qualify for anything.
Right.
So we'll see what they can do there. They lost Max Fried. He's gone. Charlie Morton's gone. Fried's with the Yankees now. But they're going to get...
has Yankees pitcher written all over him.
But they're getting Spencer Strider back, who missed all of last year. I actually had assumed he had Tommy John. He didn't technically have Tommy John.
No,
he did something else, which I don't even remember what the name for it is. But he's expected back either end of April or by mid-May or Memorial Day at the latest. So he immediately becomes one of the best starting pitchers in baseball. Then Ronald Acuna, who had yet another knee issue last year, he's due back about the same timeline as Spencer Strider. They signed Profar to right. It was Jim Profar is their new left fielder. He had a great year for the Padres last year.
I think so.
He comes over, and that was one of the issues that the Braves had last year was outfield, especially when Acuna was gone. Because you know what Michael Harris gives you, but they needed a corner guy, and they struggled. I mean, they signed Whit Merrifield to be their utility guy after the Phillies deemed him not worth a roster spot. So. All the publications, all the MLB experts seem to still favor the Braves overall. I guess it would be maybe a more consistent offense because, I know we're going to have Phillies colored glasses and bias, but I think the Phillies 5 starters are better than the Braves 5 starters.
Yeah.
Fully healthy Spencer Strider may be the best of the bunch. Him or Wheeler right there. I do not buy into Chris Sale replicating what he did last year.
No.
We saw him at times be the best pitcher for the White Sox and the Red Sox, but then he would disappear or get injured. Something would happen, and he's 34, right?
Yeah.
He's around Zach Wheeler's age, and the age and injuries haven't impacted Wheeler and Nola too much, but Sale has already had issues with that.
Yeah.
So, and Reynaldo Lopez, I feel like regression to the mean is more likely. Schwellenbach might be an up-and-comer, and he might have another great year.
But it also, it's hard. The more you get seen as a pitcher, sometimes the harder it gets. Sometimes
well, everyone knows about Aaron Nola's third time through the rotation, so... But what I'm saying is I favor the Phillies starting pitchers
Yeah.
against the Braves starting pitchers. I think the Phillies and Braves offenses are both very talented and some of the best in the majors. I feel like the Braves are maybe less flashy but more consistent.
Yeah.
The Phillies are boom or bust.
Yeah.
So which are you getting? Because if you're getting the Phillies
Right.
boom with the Phillies starting pitchers, I'm taking them in the series. We saw them do it 2 playoff years in a row.
Right. Right.
Like so, there's data there that shows that this is the case. This is the thing that happens. It's not like they were missing Acuna or Strider those years either.
Right.
So maybe the consistency of the Braves offense is what gets them the division. Maybe the Mets. I know everyone talks about the flash, the money spent. Soto, they don't have pitching.
No.
They don't have pitching.
Well, and Soto is interesting because like he's a bat.
He's
but
an average fielder at best.
Yeah, he wasn't always that way. Like he's got a cannon for an arm,
Right.
but
But his reads on the ball, his angles,
become-
his catching ability.
He's become more Yasiel Puig
Right.
in the field than anything else. Like can throw the ball through the glove of anybody, but he might let it by him for a double or triple at a key time or not get there. Like his fielding has been suspect. And now he hits, but like I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out in New York the first time he messes up in the outfield and struck out 3 times or something like that.
Right. So look, I'm not saying the Mets are going to finish sub 500.
No,
they're going to be
they're gonna be
good.
good.
They're going to score. They're going to score runs. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see them have a hot start, but then pull a Mets and struggle
Yeah.
once we get to August and September.
That would be great.
We've seen that happen a few times with them over the years. And to start the year last year, they were not good.
Yeah.
And, maybe they caught something. They got hot at the right time. Faded just too little at the end against the Dodgers in the NLCS. Couldn't get it done. I could see them starting hot and fading. I feel like they're long shots to make the NLCS.
Yeah.
Maybe long shot's not the right word,
Right.
but of the top 6 to 8 teams in the NL, they're right in there, and I would favor them to probably make the playoffs, whether it's NL East 2 or 3. Top 3 team, the NL East is the best division in terms of the top 3.
Right.
Are they best division overall? That's tough because the Nationals are not going to be good and the Marlins are going to be terrible.
Right.
That's the thing about the Phillies, that they need to take care of business against the Nationals and the Marlins.
Right.
Because they were just above 500, I think, against
Yeah.
one of them last year. The Mets I think it was the Nationals. The Mets beat the Nationals 11 out of 13 times. Like, that's what you have to do against bad teams.
Yep.
You can't be going 7-6 against them.
Right.
That's not good enough.
No.
So
when we start out in Washington this week,
right.
you need to take at least 2 out of 3.
All
At
right.
least 2 out of 3.
Well, we've only got like 5 minutes left. I know we didn't talk a lot of I shouldn't have called it the MLB preview. I should have called it the Phillies preview because it's going to be Phillies heavy with us here. We know the Dodgers are the best team. They're the greatest team in the history of Major League Baseball. They're better than all those Yankees teams from
Pencil
all
them in
those
now.
years, right? Look, baseball is a weird game.
Yeah. The Dodgers know that as well as
The-
anybody.
right.
They've had the best roster
For the
most
past
years of
7
the
years,
last decade.
They have
Like,
they
they've
have
had the
2
best
World
roster.
Series to show for
They
it.
do.
But they could have been a dynasty like Penn State wrestling.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, if the Astros weren't cheating,
It's
they
true.
They
It's
probably
true.
are.
Something could be different. But the Phillies, Braves, and Mets, I do have all making the playoffs. This is a weird position for me to be in because I feel like I'm being the pessimist and or realist when it comes here. I wasn't super impressed. I was very angry at the end of last season. Maybe lucky that I was having a medical procedure done as they were choking away their last. I think that was the last game when I went in for that CAT scan.
Sir, are you anxious over this? No.
No,
The test, not at all.
No,
It's just
it's the Phillies that are probably causing these gut issues, anyways. Look, I love this Phillies team. They're clearly not to the 2007, 2011 team because they didn't win the World Series yet.
Man, if they did,
Right.
Pencil
Well, I
them
mean,
in as
wait,
legends.
Hey,
They'd be
what
legends.
did Jimmy Rollins tell Bryce Harper?
right? You want to stop hearing about the 2008 team?
Go win.
Go win. And I'm telling you, and I think I sent it to you. I'm like, put it down. I was like, put it down.
That's Harper's
This
Rollins moment.
This is the moment that was the Jimmy Rollins moment of we're the team to beat, right? And everybody's like, oh, I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he said that. Kind of like this, like.
Was that was 08, right?
I think
I couldn't remember if that was
I think it
07
08,
or
'cause
08.
It was
I
after
think it was
07, and everybody's chirping with the Mets and be like, "Are you going to let it happen again?" And Jimmy's like, "We're the team to beat because the Mets were the team. The Mets
Right.
were the team."
Well, they choked in 07.
right,
And then they choked in 08. They
Right,
choked
they did.
back-to-back years.
Yeah.
And the Phillies won the World Series then. So,
right.
but you got to have that moment. And I love this Philly team. And it helps that I'm back in the area. I wasn't around
Right.
in 07 and 08 to experience Phillies baseball with friends and family here while they were doing well. When I got back here, it was just in time to watch them lose the World Series, which we talked about in the
Right,
car on the
yes.
way home last night to the Yankees as I was moving into my new home where we're broadcasting from now. So I want this team to be on that level. I don't know if they can, even if they win it, just because that was the first championship in my sports life.
Right.
Like,
Right.
Well,
No,
for
I know.
any of us,
Yeah.
right? Like, because the Eagles hadn't won yet.
Right.
So the Phillies winning in 08 was the
I mean,
first championship
Technically, Penn State won in our lifetime.
Okay, yeah, but we weren't.
Not, yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
that
I-
was
I don't want
what?
to say it doesn't count, but in our fandom essence, it doesn't count.
We were both like 3, right? Because it would have been January '87, probably.
Yeah.
86
Something
season.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't remember that.
Right.
Like that doesn't count. My sports fandom started in like 1992.
Right.
So if you didn't do anything from 92 onward, I don't remember it.
Right. Right.
It doesn't count
right.
to me.
And so, right.
As much as I like that banner hanging there next to you, Justin,
Right.
as we discussed it
with
with
Austin, yes.
with Austin yesterday, that it's been 50 years since
Right.
the Flyers had won the Stanley Cup, back-to-back seasons.
Right.
Anyways,
Yes. I'm the same thing. Like it'll be hard to replace that. It'll be hard to replace that. But man, like, and again, I want them to win the World Series. Like I'm a Phillies fan, but I also really want it for a lot of guys I want Bryce Harper to win a World Series,
Yes.
and I want him to do it in Philadelphia.
I want
JT to have a World Series.
yeah.
I want Zach Wheeler to
Wheeler
have a World
and
Series.
Nola.
I want Nola to have
Like,
a World Series.
yeah.
Like I want these guys to win it here in Philly. You know, like that would be amazing. It would just be, it would be so great.
Well-
and listen, this is just me saying it because I know the other teams are so far from it. It's not the same, but I don't know that the world is ready for a Philadelphia city that is like the reigning champs in multiple sports at one time.
man,
Like-
it would kind of be a lot like Boston was experienced in the late,
Right,
in like the
right.
mid to late 2000s.
right.
So the other thing besides being back in the area to experience these is my family has become
Yes.
like hardcore Phillies and I don't want to say baseball fans because if it's not the Phillies, they don't really care. They're not watching the World Series if it's not the Phillies. They're not watching baseball games that aren't the Phillies. That's not happening. But starting last year for sure, like Kelly is watching spring training games, and this year, like when they're not on, like it's upsetting. And it was just spring training; it means nothing. And there are guys that were like, "Who is this person?" Like this minor, they're wearing like 70s,
Right,
80s, and
right.
90s. They don't even have their nameplate on the back, but we're watching because it feels good. It's spring baseball. We're coming out of the doldrums of winter. We're ready to go. It's March now, but Natalie actually wrote a poem. I think it was like they were talking about or writing poetry in class
Okay.
on Wednesday, but she emailed to me like right at the end of the day. It was like 2:38, like right before the bell was coming out. And I read it. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And I forwarded it to Kelly. And I actually had it made up. I made a design for it and had it printed on a poster. I hung it.
I saw it.
I put it
saw
so
it.
it's hanging
Yeah,
up over there.
I saw it.
I have it hanging up. I made magnets out of it. I took it to the shop and I'm giving it to one for Brian,
That's awesome.
so that Amy can have a Phillies logo
Hey,
in her house.
Absolutely.
But I have it up on the screen now. It's really fun. I posted it on X, but Natalie talking about loving baseball season, and that all started in 2022, and not like in the playoff run, the run of the World Series, like during that season leading up to it. Like, we had no idea that was how that season was going to end, but it
Right.
was fun to get engaged with it, and now every year this has become a family routine and everyone knows about it. because Brian and Amy and Kelly's mom, my dad, like people text me after a Phillies will hit a home run and be like, "Did anyone call that?" You know, because we give prizes. If someone tells me they're gonna hit a home run and it happens, we get to go to Wobble or Rita's and get some kind of ice cream or slushy or smoothie or whatever. I don't even know who started it for the first time, but it's fun.
That's awesome.
And Natalie wrote a poem about it, which I love. It's awesome. So that obviously has a big part of why this Phillies team could have the potential to unseat that 08 gang.
Well, and that's I know it's different, but that was one of the things. Like, and I know Austin is a Bengals fan, but like he likes rooting for the Eagles with me, you know. And they weren't playing the Bengals or anything, so like him being up and like getting to watch the Super Bowl with him this time was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know I woke him up at the end, but like he was 3 when they went, like, you know,
A little bit different,
right? So
yeah.
like it was really cool. Like that was fun. Yeah, when they're into it, it's just those enjoyable times can be very enjoyable.
All right, so I went a little long with the personal stuff. So just real quick here, that was a really long way for me to say I'm down on the team this year because they're running it back again. And while I like Kepler's look good, Luzardo's look good, we're already seeing a bit of an injury bug with Ranger, and he started hot like Bohm did last year, and he fell off really fast once the All-Star break came. Honestly, once the Phillies went to London last year, things
They were
were
never the
off.
same.
The
They were
vibes
never
were
the same
different.
after London. Never.
It disrupted the flow with the
They
starting
went to Boston,
pitchers.
who was really bad at the time, and did poorly. I don't know if they got swept or only won one
I
out
think
of
they
3
won
when they
one.
came back. But like, and yeah, they did poorly.
And at
after
that time, the Mets were trending up.
Yes.
That was like,
which also, and I get that they had extra time, but how are you on the road after London? Like you should be
Right.
at home. Like you should be at home.
yeah,
That's
you would
stupid.
think. But the Phillies and Mets went in opposite directions since they met in London. They split that series 1-1, but when they returned, the Phillies were not the same, and the Mets became a juggernaut. So I'm not feeling great. The Phillies won 95 games last year.
I think so.
They were 95 and is that 67? I nailed their record, or was plus or minus 1 or 2. I think for like 3 years in a row now. Because I was high on them in 2022. I don't think I had them at 90 wins, but I think I had them like at 88, which is I think is what they won. And then I got 2 years ago when they won 90 2 years ago, I think, and then they won 95 last year. So I was with 1 or
It's a
2
big
or
number, Joe.
nailed all 3 years. So while I'm happy that I was able to do that, my feelings this year make me less so. Do I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the National League? I do. Do I think they make the playoffs? I do. For some reason, I don't know that they're going to get to 90 wins this year.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with 88 wins,
Okay.
which would be 88 and 74. Wild card, that might be the last wild card. They may be the 6th, but we know how that
Hey,
turned out before.
Just win your games. Doesn't
Right.
matter.
So do I want to be wrong? Yes, I want to be wrong. Obviously I want them to win
I'll tell you right now.
92 to 96 games.
I'll tell you right now, the Dodgers don't want to face the Phillies, like a hot Phillies team in the playoffs.
Right.
No way.
So that's where I'm at with them. I still think they're a good team, still think they're a playoff caliber team. Do I think they're going to win the World Series? No, I don't think they're going to win the World Series. I have them at 88 wins.
Okay. I'm going to put them just because I was thinking like 89, but I'm going to go 90 just because.
Okay.
I'm going to give them
90
the
and 72.
I'm going to give them the 90. I can't pick them to win the World Series just because the Dodgers should win the World Series. Like, and I know that's not how it works, but like if I have to pick, I'm going to pick the Dodgers to win the World Series. I think the Dodgers are going to win. I really have no idea who's going to make it from the American League.
Yeah, I don't know.
feel
what
like
to think
I
there.
feel like it's pretty wide open there.
Very much so.
Yeah.
We can come back. We could touch on it maybe next week because I think next week we're talking about our all-time favorite Phillies.
Yeah, there we go.
So we could touch more next
yeah.
week, maybe on broader playoff stuff and some of the other teams. Talk more about the Phillies. But yeah, okay. So 90 and 72 from Justin, 88 and 74 from me. Look, I want to be wrong. I've done really well the last few years with it. I don't know, just something. I think because of the lack of changes and the guys all being a year older and more wear and tear on their bodies, especially the starting pitchers who have been great for. I mean, Aaron Nola has been the most steady arm since 2018.
When might we see Painter?
I'm thinking
Like midsummer.
I'm gonna say after the All-Star break, possibly.
Imagine being able to add him.
Right.
Like,
but
where
are we adding him because what are we adding him because someone is hurt or because someone's been ineffective? Because if Taiwan is sent packing or not needed
Right.
and Rangers healthy, the only reason you bring up Painter is if someone's struggling, right?
That's true.
That's like I want to see him. I think he's going to be great. But if your other 5 are going, I don't want to we know what happens when you disrupt the flow of starting pitchers. So I don't want them to go to a 6-man rotation and throw the whole thing into disarray. So, all right. Well, I hope everyone had a good weekend, enjoyed the March Madness, the Wrestling National Championship. I saw women's ice hockey just crowned a champion. Wisconsin beat Ohio State. Been an electric and one-sided affair in women's college basketball. There's been some crazy point spreads there from my good friends at UConn. Anything else for you to say, Justin?
No.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. We'll be back in a week's time. I'll be fresh off a trip to Girl Scout camp with Natalie in time for the show next Sunday. So tune in 1 week for episode 417, talking a little bit more baseball right at the beginning of the 2025 season. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again real soon.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your emails to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as The Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.